stay with me for a little while tonight. Do not rush past this moment. Do not pretend you are fine. Your heart has had a chance to speak. Let the room be quiet. Let the world keep moving without you for a few minutes. You have spent so many years answering, giving, carrying, remembering, surviving. Tonight, you do not have to perform strength for anyone. Tonight, you can simply listen. There is something I want you to hear. I know that name touched something in you again. Maybe you were not expecting it. Maybe it arrived like an old song playing from another room, soft at first, almost harmless. And then suddenly it was everywhere. In your chest, in your throat, behind your eyes, in the places you thought had finally gone still. And maybe you asked yourself, why now? Why would one name, one memory, one small echo from another season of life still have the power to disturb the quiet you worked so hard to build? Do you ever wonder why you still ache? Not because you are weak, not because you are foolish, not because you are living in the past, but because there are parts of you that loved with such sincerity, such depth, such innocence, that even time has been careful around them. You have always felt more than you admitted. You learned early how to carry emotion without making noise. You learned how to smile while something inside you folded itself neatly away. You learned how to keep going when no one asked what it cost you. You learned how to be useful, kind, available, mature, understanding. And somewhere along the way, people began mistaking your endurance for ease. But I see something different. I see the woman who has sat at a kitchen table long after the house became silent, with her hands wrapped around a cup she barely drank from, listening to the hum of the refrigerator as if it were the only thing keeping her company. I see the woman who has looked into the mirror and not hated what she saw exactly, but wondered where certain versions of herself had gone. The softer one, the trusting one, the one who believed love would recognize her without needing to be convinced. And I see how tired you are, not the kind of tired sleep can fix. The deeper kind, the kind that settles behind your ribs after years of being the one who understands everyone else, the one who makes room, the one who says it's okay even when it was not okay, the one who has forgiven things that changed her. Have you ever felt too much and yet not enough? Too intense for the ones who wanted something simple, too quiet for the ones who needed spectacle, too loyal for the ones who treated love like a passing weather, too deep for the ones who only knew how to skim the surface. And still, somehow, not enough to be chosen the way your heart needed to be chosen. That is a wound, isn't it? The fear of not being chosen again. Not just chosen for a moment. Not admired from a distance. Not desired in a way that fades when life becomes ordinary. But chosen in the tired hours. Chosen in the aging seasons. Chosen when your softness is not convenient. Chosen when your silence means you are hurting. Chosen when you have no beautiful words left, and only your trembling heart is sitting there, exposed, asking, will you stay? You have wondered if that kind of love is still meant for you. Maybe you would never say that out loud. Maybe you would laugh and say, you are fine, that life is full, that you have made peace with things. And maybe part of that is true. You have built a life out of what remained. You have learned how to walk alone without collapsing. You have become strong in ways no one applauded. But there is still an empty chair somewhere inside you, not always visible, not always painful, but present. There are evenings when you feel it more, when the light fades a certain ways, when the air carries a familiar scent, when an old song returns without warning, when you pass by some small, ordinary thing and suddenly remember who you were before disappointment taught you caution. And tonight, hearing that name again, feeling that old stirring, maybe you became aware of the chair, and the place in you still waiting. Wait with me. Do not shame that part of yourself. Do not rush to bury it. Do not call it childish. That waiting place is not proof that you are incomplete. It is proof that you are alive. It is proof that somewhere beneath all the responsibility, all the restraint, all the wisdom life carved into you, there remains a woman who still believes connection is sacred. That is not weakness. That is rare. So many people let pain make them shallow. You did not. So many people let betrayal make them cruel. You did not. So many people stop feeling because feeling becomes too expensive. But you, even after everything, still have a heart that responds to tenderness, still have a soul that recognizes meaning, still have a hidden room inside you where hope has not died, only lowered its voice. And I know sometimes you think your age has made you invisible. You feel it in small ways, in the way the world praises beginnings and forgets becoming, in the way people look past women who have survived too much to be easily explained, in the way your beauty has become less about being noticed and more about being understood. And understanding is something few people know how to offer. But listen to me. You are not disappearing. You are becoming more specific, more honest, more layered, more impossible to love casually. And that may feel lonely because casual love is everywhere and deep love is not loud. Deep love moves slowly. Deep love takes the longer road. Deep love does not always arrive when the world says it should. It comes when the soul is finally ready to be seen without armor. Maybe that is why this moment of hurt, because the name reminded you of timing. Of what almost happened, of what never happened, of what you imagined, of what you had to release without ceremony. There are losses no one attends, flowers, no condolences, no one standing beside you saying, I know this mattered. You just wake up one day and realize something you hoped for is no longer coming in the form you expected. And yet your heart still remembers the perfume that faded from a coat collar, the message you almost sent, the silence after you realized you were waiting for someone who was not coming closer, the bed that felt too wide, not because you needed someone beside you, but because you needed someone to understand the parts of you that were awake in the dark. There are wounds you never confessed because you thought naming them would make them heavier. But unnamed wounds do not disappear. They wait for gentleness. So let me be gentle here. You loved deeply because depth is your nature. You hoped because hope is how your soul breathes. You stayed longer than you should have, perhaps, because you were trying to honor what you felt. You carried more than your share because you believed of love meant devotion. None of that makes you foolish. It makes you human in the most beautiful, aching way. And I want you to understand something tonight. The fact that you were not chosen by someone who could not meet you does not mean you were unworthy of being chosen. It means their hands were too uncertain for what your heart required. It means their capacity was not equal to your tenderness. It means the door that did not open may have been protecting a future you could not yet see. There is a strange mercy and delay. I know that it is hard to believe when you are tired. I know spiritual timing can sound like a phrase people use when they do not know what else to say. But I have lived long enough
in silence and sorrow to know this.
Some things do not arrive late. They arrive after the false things have finished teaching us. And maybe love has not abandoned you. Maybe it has been learning your name correctly. Maybe it has been moving through years, through distance, through lessons, through endings, becoming mature enough to recognize you when it finally stands before you. There may be someone meant for the woman you are now, not the woman you had to be back then. Someone who does not need your pain translated into simpler language. Someone who will notice when your voice changes. Someone who will sit beside your quiet and not treat it like rejection. Someone who will understand that your tenderness is not something to take from, but something to protect. But before that future reaches you, I need you to stop abandoning yourself in the present. I need you to stop speaking to yourself as if you are too late. You are not too late. You are not behind. You are not a leftover story. You are not the woman love forgot. You are the woman life has been carefully, painfully, quietly into someone who can no longer accept half presence and call it devotion. And yes, that kind of becoming can feel lonely. It can feel like standing in a doorway between who you were and not yet sure you are allowed to become. But I am here with you in that doorway, and I am not looking away. Tonight, let that name be what it is. Not a command to return, not a punishment, not proof that you have failed to heal. Let it be a bell, a soft bell inside the heart reminding you that something still matters, that you still matter, that your capacity to love has survived the very things that tried to close it. Breathe. Let your shoulders loosen. Let the night hold what you cannot solve. You do not have to know what comes next. You do not have to understand why certain memories returned. You only have to trust that nothing true inside you is wasted. Not the tears, not the waiting, not the love you gave, not the loneliness that taught you how sacred companionship really is. Your story is still being written, not by fear, not by regret, not by the people who failed to see you, by something wiser, something tender, something still unfolding. And for tonight, let this be enough. You were seen here. You were not too much here. You were not invisible here. Your ache had a place to rest here. You are not alone. I'm right here. Stay with me tonight, just a little longer, and let the name that returned to you stop knocking so hard against the walls of your heart. You do not have to answer it immediately. You do not have to decide whether it means longing, warning, memory, or mercy. Sometimes the soul hears something before the mind is ready to explain it, and that is why your chest feels so full right now. I know you tried to Be practical. I know you told yourself you were beyond certain feelings, beyond old doors, beyond the trembling foolishness of hoping. But then one familiar sound moved through for the quiet, and suddenly you were back inside a tenderness you thought time had folded away. Wait with me here. Let the silence become kind. Let your breathing slow. There is something beneath this ache, and it has been waiting to be understood by love. Maybe you learned a long time ago that your feelings were safest when they were hidden. Maybe there were rooms where your sadness took up too much space, so you became smaller, quieter, easier to accept. You became the woman who could sense everyone else's mood before they spoke, the woman who knew when to soften her voice, when to step back, when to swallow the sentence that might have revealed too much need. Little by little, you became fluent in restraint. You loved with your whole inner world, but outside you looked composed. You missed people without calling. You cried without making anyone uncomfortable. You sat on the edge of the bed at night, listening to the tired house breathe, and you wondered if anyone had ever truly noticed the cost of being so understanding. Have you ever felt lonely because you were too good at surviving quietly? I think that is why this evening found you so easily. It did not come through the front door of your life. It slipped through a crack in the ordinary, a cup in the sink, a chair pushed back from the table, the faint memory of perfume on fabric, the mirror catching your face when you were not prepared to look at yourself honestly. That is how revelation often comes, not with thunder, but with a small domestic quiet that suddenly becomes holy. You remember who you were before the world asked you to be reasonable. You remember the younger ache, the secret faith, the way your heart once reached for love, as if it were sunlight. And then you remember the disappointments, too, the unanswered messages, the promises that dissolved, the people who wanted your warmth but not your truth. That contradiction still lives in you even tonight, quietly. You have been loved incompletely, and because you are wise, you tried to make incompleteness less painful by naming it maturity. You told yourself not everyone can give what you give. You told yourself people have wounds, histories, fears, limitations. You became generous even with the ones who left you hungry. But generosity without being met can become a slow starvation. It can teach a woman to distrust her own need, to feel ashamed for wanting presence, consistencies, tenderness, a hand that does not let go when the conversation becomes difficult. And I need you to hear this clearly. Needing to be chosen is not weakness. Health. Wanting devotion is not desperation. Hoping someone will remember your heart without being reminded is not asking too much. The part of you that still longs is not immature. She is the keeper of your truth, and she has protected you beautifully for years. Do you ever wonder why certain memories refuse to obey your decisions? You may tell yourself the past is closed, and still your body remembers the temperature of a voice. You may forgive someone and still feel the bruise when a similar silence returns. Accept. You may accept that something was not meant to become a home and still ache for the doorway you once imagined. This, friends, does not mean you are trapped. It means your heart is honest. Healing is not erasing. Healing is learning to hold the memory without letting it hold the future hostage. And tonight, perhaps that name came back not to pull you backward, but to show you how far you have traveled. You can feel the old pain and still remain here. You can miss what never fully arrived and still belong to yourself with a tenderness no one can steal from you. I know there were years when you gave people the gentlest versions of yourself while hiding the most frightened ones. You let them see your patience, your humor, your care, your wisdom, but not always the small inner voice that asked, "Will I ever be loved without auditioning? Will I ever be held without having to prove I am worth the effort? Will someone ever look at my quiet and understand there is a whole weather system moving beneath it?" That question has followed you into kitchens, into cars, into the half-light before sleep. It has stood beside you while you folded laundry, while you listened to rain, while you watched other people be chosen so easily. And though you were happy for them, a secret ache whispered, when will life remember me? I want you to know life has not forgotten the sacred shape of your longing at all. There is a timing beneath visible timing, a deeper rhythm than Calendar's expectations or the impatient voices that say a woman should have become everything by now. The Spirit does not measure you by the world's cruel deadlines. It measures by ripening, by the slow return of self, by the courage it takes to remain open after being disappointed. You are not late because love did not stay when you were younger. You are not behind because the certain dreams changed their clothing. You are not less because the mirror now reflects someone who has lived, endured, buried illusions, and still carries softness like a candle protected from wind. This season is not evidence that you have been passed over. It may be preparation for a love that can only recognize the woman who stopped negotiating with crumbs and started calling her own soul home. Again, with trembling faith today. That is why I want you to be careful with the way you speak to yourself after nights like this. Do not wake tomorrow and scold your heart for being moved. Do not say, "There I go again, feeling too deeply." Do not reduce a sacred tremor to embarrassment. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is the instrument through which you have survived, loved, discerned, and prayed. It tells you when something matters. It tells you when a room is empty in ways furniture cannot fix. It tells you when someone is near your body but far from your soul. It tells you when a memory has returned because there is wisdom hidden inside it. Listen gently. Ask what the ache is trying to bless, not merely what it is trying to break. Sometimes longing is grief wearing the clothing of guidance and grace disguised as remembrance for you. So when the name comes again, or when the old song begins in some corner of the night, place your hand over your heart and tell yourself, I am not being punished by memory. I am being invited into truth. The truth is that you wanted love to be steady. The truth is that you wanted to be seen without shrinking. The truth is that you wanted someone to speak your name as if it were safe in their mouth. And there is nothing shameful in that. There is nothing expired in you. There is nothing invisible to the who has watched every tear you never explained. Your future is not empty because tonight feels tender. Your story is still breathing, still unfolding, still making room for devotion. You are not alone. I'm right here. Your story is still being written gently. Stay with me now, and do not hide from the part of you that is shaking. Let this be the place where you stop explaining why you are affected. Let the room be soft enough around you, even if nothing in the room has changed. The same walls, the same light, the same quiet chair, the same ordinary night, and yet something in you has become exposed. That is how the heart opens when it has been holding too much for too long. It does not always break loudly. Sometimes it simply grows tired of pretending the weight is light. Tonight, you may feel more fragile than you expected, but fragility is not failure. It is the soul taking off its armor for a moment and saying, I cannot keep standing like stone when I was made to feel, to receive, to be held. There is something I want you to hear before you turn away from your own tenderness. You have spent years being brave in ways no one photographed, no one praised, no one even knew how to name. You became dependable. While wise, some part of you still wanted to be protected. You became calm because chaos had already taken enough from you. And now, when an old name returns, when memory brushes against you like a hand you did not invite, you wonder why your strength suddenly feels porous. But maybe this is not weakness entering you. Maybe this is his truth leaving the locked room. Maybe you have reached the sacred tiredness where a woman can no longer survive by being unreachable, and her spirit begins asking for honesty instead of control. Have you ever noticed how surrender feels frightening because it sounds too much like losing? You have lost before. Lost faith, life in people, lost versions of yourself, lost mornings to worry and nights to remembering, lost the innocent belief that everyone who says they care knows how to stay. So when life asks you to soften, of course, something in you resists. Of course, you tighten your hands around what remains. Of course, you tell yourself not to expect too much, not to want too deeply, not to lean your heart out to any future that has not proven itself. But surrender is not giving up your dignity. It is releasing the illusion that your heart must be guarded every second to be safe. It is letting love, God, time, and your own becoming enter places. Fear has been managing alone. I know there are wounds you never confessed because confess them would have made them real in the open air. The fear that no one will choose you with certainty again. The ache of feeling unseen beside people who benefited from your presence. The private exhaustion of being the one who remembers birthdays, notices sadness, senses distance, offers grace, and still wonders who is studying your heart with that same devotion. You may have stood in front of the mirror some evenings and seen not age, but evidence. Evidence of euchre you carried. How you survived. All the times you fixed your expression before stepping back into the world, and perhaps Destot you asked quietly, without words. Will anyone ever love the woman behind this composure? The one who is still tired, still tender, still hoping? Wait with me in that question. Do not rush to answer it with cynicism. Do not protect yourself by saying it no longer matters. It does matter. You matter. The wanting matters, even if it embarrasses you. The longing matters, even if it arrives inconveniently. The tears that almost come when the bed is quiet matter, because they are not proof that you are incomplete. They are proof that your soul resembles intimacy as something holy. You were not made only to endure. You were not made only to be useful, graceful, forgiving, resilient, and self-contained. You were made to be met. Not rescued like a helpless child, not completed like a missing half, but met, recognized, accompanied, and cherished in the places where your strength has become lonely. And maybe that is the tender exposure of tonight. Not merely that a name returned, but that it revealed the room inside you where desire is still alive. You may have thought you had closed that room. You may have placed furniture in front of the door, covered the windows, lowered the music, told yourself you were content with silence. Yet one sound, one memory, one inward trembling, and suddenly the room is lit again. There is the empty chair, there is the old song, there is the scent of something fading but not forgotten. There is the version of you who once believed love would arrive with both hands open. Do not be ashamed of her. She was not naive. She was pure in a world that often rewards guardedness, and her purity deserves your protection now. Do you ever wonder why you still ache even after all your understanding? It is because understanding does not replace being held. You can explain someone's absence and still grieve it. You can forgive their limitations and still feel the space they left. You can know intellectually that what failed was not meant to contain your future and still feel the bruise when the night becomes too quiet. Healing is not pretending you needed nothing. Healing is finally admitting, without humiliation, that you needed more than you received. More honesty, more steadiness, more tenderness, more courage from someone who knew your heart was rare and still treated it carelessly, saying that does not make you bitter. It makes you awake. It lets the wound breathe until it no longer has to whisper from underneath your life. So let yourself be exposed here, but only to gentleness. Let the guarded woman rest her hands. Let the disappointed woman sit down. Let Woman, come closer without being mocked. Let all of them exist inside you at once, because you are not one simple feeling. You are a whole sanctuary of seasons. You are spring that survived winter, autumn that learned release, summer warmth hidden beneath careful restraint. You are not too old for wonder. You are not too wounded for devotion. You are not too complicated to be loved well. The right soul will not experience your depth as a burden. He will feel it as a place to become honest. He will not be frightened by your silence, because he will have learned to listen beneath words. I cannot promise you that every longing will arrive in the form you once imagined. Life is too mysterious for shallow promises. But I can tell you this: nothing sincere in you has been wasted. The love you gave, the nights you prayed without knowing whether anyone heard, the moment chose kindness when bitterness would have been easier, the softness you protected even while aging through disappointment, all of it has been shaping a future your fear cannot yet picture. There is still movement beyond what you can see. There are still doors not visible from this hallway. There is still a hand of mercy writing through the pauses. Tonight, you do not have to chase the future. You only have to stop condemning the part of you that still wants to be loved. Let the name fade now if it needs to fade. Let it remain if it still has something to teach. You are safe either way. You are not being dragged backward. You are being invited deeper into yourself. The ache is not your enemy. It is a messenger carrying news from the hidden country of your heart, telling you where tenderness still lives, where grief still waits for blessing, where hope still breathes under the floorboards. Place your hand there gently, as if comforting someone beloved, because you are someone beloved. Even before anyone arrives, even before destiny speaks clearly, even before the empty chair is filled, you are already worthy of reverence. You are reverence. You are not alone. I'm right here. Your story is still being written. Stay with me a little longer, and let this be the moment where the ache begins to change its shape. Not disappear, not pretend it was never there, not become some polished lesson you can explain neatly to someone else, but change. Let it move from punishment into meaning. Let it stop sitting on your chest like evidence that something is wrong with you. Because maybe what hurts tonight is not the return of an old name, but the return of a question you have carried for years. Was I ever truly seen? Or was I only needed, admired, touched, remembered, and still somehow missed? Wait with me, because that question deserves more tenderness than the world gave it. You have spent so much of your life trying to make peace with things that were never fully explained to you. You know, people left rooms inside your heart without turning off the lights. They walked away from conversations that still echo. They gave you almost love, almost truth, almost devotion, and because your soul is generous, you tried to honor even the fragments. But fragments cut the hands that hold them too long. And somewhere in the quiet kitchen, after everyone else's needs had been met, you began wondering whether love always asks you to bleed quietly. I want to tell you no. Real love does not require you to disappear in order to be kept. Real love does not make a woman apologize for the very depth that makes her sacred. Do you ever wonder why you were given such a large heart in a world that so often rewards smallness? Maybe you have asked that in your own private way, not dramatically, not bitterly, but while standing at the sink with your thoughts, wondering back to a voice you once trusted. Maybe you have looked at the empty chair across from you and thought, I could have loved so well if someone had only known how to stay. That is not self-pity. That is not self-pity. That is grief telling the truth. You were capable of building warmth. You were capable of devotion that felt like home. You were capable of remembering the smallest details, softening the hard days, turning ordinary hours into shelter. The tragedy was never that you loved deeply. The tragedy was that some people stood near that love without reverence. But listen to me closely now. The wrong hands do not define the worth of what they failed to hold. A person can mishandle a diamond and still not reduce its radiance. A person can walk past a garden and still not make the flowers less alive. A person can hear your heart and not understand its language, but that does not mean your heart spoke incorrectly. You have blamed yourself too often for being misunderstood by people who were never listening with their whole soul. You wondered whether you asked too much, felt too much, needed too much reassurance. But maybe the truth is simpler and kinder. You were asking for love at the level your spirit was built to recognize, and they were offering only what their own unhealed places could afford. There is breakthrough in seeing this, not as angers, not as superiority, not as a reason to close yourself forever, but as release. You can finally stop bending the story until their absence sounds like your inadequacy. You can stop turning their uncertainty into a verdict on your desirability. You can stop making your age, your sensitivity, your history, your tenderness, your longing, your tiredness into reasons why you were not chosen correctly. Perhaps you were not rejected from love. Perhaps you were protected from a version of love that would have kept you starving while calling the hunger normal. Perhaps the door that hurt you most was the same door mercy would not let you force open. I know that is hard to receive when the bed is quiet and the old song returns. I know there are nights when wisdom feels thin compared to wanting. You may understand everything and still wish someone were beside you. Breathing gently in the dark, aware of your restlessness without needing an explanation. You may trust timing and still feel the sting of being alone when your heart is full of words. You may believe in divine order and still ask softly, how much longer must I be strong? Those questions do not make you faithless, they make you honest. Even the deepest spirit sometimes trembles. Even the woman who has survived so much still needs somewhere to lay down the armor she never wanted to wear. So here is the meaning I want to place gently in your hands. You were not delayed because you were forgotten. You were being returned to yourself before being entrusted to someone else. Every disappointment exposed where you had been accepting less than presence. Every silence taught you to hear your own inner voice again. Every almost taught you the difference between chemistry, between attention, devotion, between someone enjoying your warmth and someone honoring your soul. This does not make the pain beautiful by itself. Pain is not holy state simply because it hurts, but what grows from pain when held by great ace can become wisdom that no one can take from you. And look at you now. Even if you cannot see it, your fears crit clearly. You are softer than your fears predicted, stronger than your heartbreak expected, wiser than your old patterns can control. There is a quiet authority rising in you, not loud, not harsh, not defensive, steady, but steady. I will note back benefits by anyone who benefits from my invisibility. It says, I will not call inconsistency mystery just because I am afraid of losing someone. It says, I can love deeply and still choose myself. That is not coldness. That is maturity with a pulse. That is the woman inside you finally standing up from the lonely table and realizing the empty chair is not proof of abandonment. It is space being kept for what can truly meet her. Have you ever felt too much and yet not enough? Let tonight answer differently. You were too much only for hands that wanted something lighter than truth. You were not enough only for appetites that did not know how to be satisfied by depth, but for the love meant to recognize you. Your feeling will not be excess. Your quiet will not be confusion. Your history will not be a burden. Your aging will not be invisibility. It will be evidence of becoming evidence of endurance, evidence that you have passed through fire without letting your tenderness turn to ash. The right soul will not ask you to become smaller so he can feel larger. He will come with enough inner room to welcome all the weather you have survived. There is something I want you to hear before this night closes around you. Your future is not waiting for the younger version of you. It is not searching for the woman before the wounds, before the mirror changed, before disappointment taught caution. Your future is looking for you as you are now, layered, tender, discerning, spiritually seasoned, emotionally alive. The love that belongs near you will not arrive to erase your past, but to sit beside it with respect. It will understand why certain silences frighten you. It will move slowly where others rushed. It will speak truth where others hid. It will not make you wonder every night whether you are chosen. Let the name that returned tonight become a doorway, not a prison. Let it remind you that your heart still has rooms of meaning, but you are no longer required to live inside yesterday's unanswered questions. You can bless what taught you, grieve what hurt you, grieves what touched you, and still lease what could not stay. And still open your hands toward what is coming. The old perfume may fade. The old song may quiet. The mirror may show a woman who has lived many seasons, but look again with mercy. She is not ruined. She is ripened. She is not invisible. She is becoming visible to herself, and that is where all true love begins. You are not alone. I'm right here. I'm right here. Your story is still being written. Stay with me now, and let tonight become the place where you begin returning to yourself without asking anyone's permission. You have spent so long measuring your worth by how gently others held you, how quickly first remembered you, how faithfully they came back while your heart was waiting in the dark. But there comes a sacred moment in a woman's life when she stops standing at the doorway of another person's uncertainty and starts walking back into her own soul. This is that kind of moment. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet turning, like a lamp switched on in a room you had abandoned years ago. Wait with me here, because there is something I want you to hear. You are allowed to belong to yourself again. You are allowed to stop apologizing for the depth that made the wrong people uncomfortable. For years, you may have confused being chosen with being proven worthy, as if someone else's consistency could finally settle the argument inside you. And when they were distant, distracted, unsure, or careless, you may have turned that absence inward and asked what you lacked. Was I too emotional? Was I too late? Was I not beautiful enough in the way the world notices? Was my tenderness too heavy? Was my tenderness, carefully, because this is where the old spell begins to break. The way someone failed to recognize you is not the measure of your value. Their blindness was not your definition. Their hesitation was not your mirror. You do not have to keep kneeling before the memory of people who could only love you in pieces, your wholes. Even where your needs, you are whole. Even where longing still whispers. I know the mirror has not always been gentle. Not because your reflection is unkind, but because memory sometimes stands beside you when you look. You see a face that has carried birthdays, griefs, hopes delayed, seasons survived, and you wonder if love still knows how to find a woman who has lived. The world can be cruel to women who have ripened. It teaches them to fear time instead of honor what time has revealed. But I want you to look again, not through the eyes of a market that worships newness, not through the eyes of anyone who treated your maturity like fading light. Look through mercy. Look through spirit. Look through the truth that a woman who has endured and remained tender carries a beauty too deep for show tension. Have you ever felt invisible while still being the one everyone depended on? That is a peculiar loneliness, isn't it? To be useful, but not truly seen, appreciated, but not deeply known, present in everyone's life, yet missing from the center of your own. You gave advice while needing comfort. You offered calm while swallowing panic. You made others feel safe while wondering where your own safe place had gone. This is why becoming yourself again may feel strange at first. It may feel selfish to choose rest, firm boundaries, honest desire, and sacred standards. But it is not selfish to stop abandoning yourself for the comfort of people who never learned the language of reciprocity. It is not selfish to say, I deserve to be met with the same tenderness I have given away. There may be grief in reclaiming yourself because part of you still wishes someone else had done this first. You wish someone had taken your trembling heart in their hands and said, I see how much you carry. I see how tired you are. I see the child in you who learned to be eased to love by needing less. I see the woman in you who kept loving after being hurt. You hurt. You wish someone had come before the exhaustion, before the doubts, before the years taught you to sleep beside your own unanswered questions. And perhaps that grief is real. Let it be real. Let it sit at the table for a moment, but do not let it become the author of your future. Grief can visit. It does not get to rule. Wait with me, because this is where your worth starts rising from beneath the ashes of overgiving. You do not have to prove that you are loving by tolerating absence. You do not have to prove that you are spiritual by denying disappointment. You do not have to prove that you are mature by calling crumbs a feast. A healed woman does not become hard. She becomes honest. She learns the difference between patience and self-erasure. She learns that compassion without discernment can be as a doorway for repeated pain. She learns that saying no can be an act of devotion to the soul God entrusted to her. And slowly, almost shyly, she begins to stand differently inside her own life, as if the ground has finally remembered her name. Can you feel it? Even faintly, this quiet return of dignity. It may not feel like confidence yet. It may feel like a whisper. It may sound like I am tired of convincing people to notice what should be obvious. It may sound like I can miss someone and still refuse to reopen the door to my own neglect. Sound like I am not too late for tenderness, but I am too awake for counterfeit love. That is becoming. That is the sacred middle place between the woman who endured and the woman who will receive. You are not rejecting love. Huh? You are preparing, recognize it without losing yourself inside it. Making space not by becoming empty, but by becoming truthful. The empty chair is no longer an altar to absence. It is a quiet promise that only what honors you may sit there. Tonight, if the name returns again, let it meet the woman you are now, not the woman who once waited with her whole heart exposed. Let it find you softer, yes, but steadier. Let it find you with hands no longer reaching for what will not reach back. Let it find you blessed by the lessons you never wanted and protected by the wisdom they left behind. You can remember without returning. You can feel without falling. You can love what was beautiful without pretending what hurt you was harmless. This is freedom, not the cold freedom of indifference, but the warm freedom of self-respect. You are allowed to keep the tenderness and release the torment. You are allowed to say, that mattered, and still say, I matter now. And you do matter more than the old silence ever allowed you to believe. You matter when no one is watching. You be strong. You matter when the kitchen is quiet and the cup in your hands has gone cold. You matter when the mirror catches your tired eyes and you wonder whether the best parts of your life have already passed. They have not. The future is not finished with you. Love is not finished with you. God is not finished. Breathe light into the rooms you thought had gone dark. Somewhere ahead, there is a version of you who no longer flinches when happiness comes close. She does not chase, does not shrink, does not translate her soul into smaller sentences. She receives, she rests, she lets herself be cherished without suspicion, and every time you choose yourself with gentleness tonight, you move closer to her. So, breathe, beloved woman. Let the old ache loosen its hands. Let the fading perfume be only a memory, not a prophecy. Let the old song play without making you a prisoner. You are becoming visible to yourself, and one day the love meant for your whole heart will recognize that light. Not because you earned love by suffering, but because your soul was always worthy of a devotion that arrives with clean hands, steady eyes, and a peaceful kind of certainty, finally feeling home. You are not alone. I'm right here. Your story is still being written. Stay with me for this last stretch of the night, and let your heart stop bracing as if tenderness is always followed by loss. Let the room become quiet again, not with emptiness this time, but with a deeper kind of presence. You have walked through recognition, memory, exposure, meaning, and the slow return of your own dignity. And now there is a different stillness around you. It is not the stillness of waiting by a closed door. It is the stillness of before something holy is allowed to arrive. I want you to breathe as if your future is not against you. I want you to rest your hands, loosen your shoulders, and let the old fear know it no longer has to guard every entrance. You are not standing at the edge of abandonment tonight. You are standing at the edge of arrival. There is something I want you to hear, and I want it to reach the places in you. Stop expecting good news. Love is not only something behind you. It is not only the old name. the old song, the fading perfume, the memory that returned before you were ready. Love is also ahead of you, moving out quietly through unseen corridors, learning how to find the woman you have become. Not the woman who once accepted in uncertainty because she was afraid silence meant the end. Not the woman who confused longing with destiny. Not the woman who sat beside the empty chair and wondered whether she had already missed her chance. The love that is worthy of you is not searching for your younger innocence. It is searching for your ripened truth, your seasoned softness, your courage after sorrow, your heart that still knows how to tremble without closing. Have you ever imagined what it would feel like to be met without having to teach someone how to see you? Not chased in chaos, not flattered for a moment, not desired only when you are easy, but truly met. A presence that does not make you perform calm when you are afraid. A voice that does not disappear when the conversation becomes honest. A hand that reaches for yours, not because you are falling apart, but because companionship is sacred. I believe there is a kind of love that will feel less like an interruption and more like recognition. It will not erase the years you spent alone. It will not insult your past by pretending it did not matter. It will sit beside everything you survived and say, I understand why you became careful, and I am not here to punish you for needing time. Maybe this is what your soul has been preparing for all along, not a fairy tale rescue, but a mature union where your heart can exhale. Someone who does not worship you from a distance and then fail you up close. Someone whose devotion has weight, whose words have roots, whose silence feels peaceful instead of threatening. Someone who notices the small changes in you. The pause before you answer, the way your eyes grow quiet when an old wound passes through, the way you become tender around memories you no longer want to explain. And when he notices, he will not make you feel dramatic. He will come closer. He will understand that is not a problem to manage, but a sanctuary to respect. He will not ask you to be younger, simpler, less wounded, less wise. He will recognize that every season you survived has made you more able to love with truth. And until that presence stands fully before you, I want you to understand that your arrival has already begun. It begins every time you stop yourself too much. It begins every time you look in the mirror and refuse to see a woman fading. It begins when you sit in the kitchen silence and realize the quiet is no longer proof of being forgotten. It begins when you hear the old name and do not collapse into the old version of yourself. It begins when you let the empty chair remain empty rather than filling it with someone who cannot honor the sacredness of sitting there. You are not waiting helplessly. You are preparing inwardly. You are becoming the kind of woman who can receive without shrinking, trust without abandoning discernment, and love without losing the home she has built within herself. Do you see how beautiful that is? Not beautiful in the shallow way the world measures women, but beautiful in the eternal way, a soul returning to its own light after years of mistaking endurance for identity. You are not merely surviving anymore. Something in you is becoming available to joy again. Perhaps quietly, perhaps cautiously, perhaps with tears, is still close to the surface, but available. And that matters, because joy does not always rush in like sunrise. Sometimes it enters like a candle in a dark hallway. Sometimes it sounds like your own breath becoming less afraid. Sometimes it feels like realizing that the future may still hold a table where you are not the only one remembering, a bed where silence is warm, a home where love does not leave you guessing, a name spoken with reverence, and a heart beside yours that knows the holiness of staying. Let the past take its rightful place now, not as an enemy, not as a throne, not as a prison. Let it become a teacher whose lesson is complete. The ones who could not choose you clearly do not get to define the clarity that is coming. The ones who saw your tenderness and used it carelessly do not get to decide whether tenderness remains safe. The unanswered messages, these unslept nights, the mirror moments, the tears you swallowed before anyone noticed, all of them belong to a road that brought you here. But you are not required to keep walking backward just because the road was painful. You may bless what formed you and still move toward what frees you. You may remember and still open. You may forgive and still choose differently. You may love again, not because you forgot the cost, but because your heart was never meant to be buried with what So tonight, future wife, beloved woman, tender survivor, let me say what your heart may have needed to hear for years. You are still worthy of being chosen with certainty. You are still worthy of a love that arrives sober, steady, and awake. You are still worthy of morning messages that do not confuse you, evening presence that does not make you beg affection that does not vanish when life becomes ordinary, and devotion that does not make your nerve system live in suspense. You are worthy at your age, in your softness, in your guarded hope, in your unfinished healing, in your laughter that sometimes hides ache, in your quiet that sometimes carries entire storms. You do not have to become less real to be loved more easily. The love meant for you will not require your disappearance. It will require your arrival. And maybe one day when the timing has finished its invisible work, you will understand certain doors closed with so much pain. You will see that what felt like rejection was also redirection. What felt like delay was also preparation. What felt like loneliness was also a sacred clearing. You will sit across from someone who looks at you as if your soul has finally been found, and the old ache will not hum as loudly. The kitchen will still be quiet sometimes, but it will not feel abandoned. The mirror will still show a woman who's lived, but you will see the glow of someone who came home to herself. The old songs may still play, but they will no longer own you. They will simply remind you that you were capable of deep love before, and now you are capable of deeper peace. Until then, I am asking you to keep your heart near, not locked away in shame. Keep your standards sacred. Keep your tenderness clean. Keep your faith soft enough to breathe and strong enough to wait for what is honest. The future is not asking you to chase it tonight. It is only asking you not to close the door on yourself. Let the unseen unfold. Let grace work where your eyes cannot reach. Let the love meant for your whole heart without you betraying your own soul to meet it halfway. You have not been forgotten. You have not been passed over. You have not outlived your possibility. You are still radiant beneath the tiredness, still rare, still deeply seen here. You are not alone. I'm right here. Your story is still being written, and love has not finished learning your name.